This is the season of light. And I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people who likes the sunlight. I like light. And in fact, on my iPhone, I can actually find out how many minutes longer our days are becoming. So we have gained, I think, 4 minutes of daylight in the past week. Yay! They have a title for this disorder, which some people have, often, I think a lot of people have, seasonal affective disorder. The letters S.A.D. We get sad because we don't have enough light. I'd like to rename it and call it Seeking Affection Daily. The thing that we don't hear much in the church is how much courage it takes to believe in the light. The gospel we read this morning is full of this Hellenistic language. It's very graceful and it's very high intellect. But for us, we have to interpret that because we're living in the world right now. Sometimes, even when that light is bright, we get skeptical. And I'm going to tell you a story about that I read some time ago about during the occupation of the Nazis in Germany. We know the story. Many, many Jews had to hide or they would be killed. And in one town, the Jewish people had discovered that they could go into the sewer and live in the sewer. It was large enough that they could be down there. And there were hundreds of them that were down there in the dark for more than a year. No light. I mean, they had to be able to see somehow, I don't know how. And they had to do all the normal things that you do when you're trying to get 3 meals a day, or at least 1 meal a day. So the war ended, and it was time for them to emerge from this very, very dark place. It was, actually, I can't even imagine what it was like. But apparently, as they came up the stairs, the ladder, to the sunlight, they could not see. They were blinded because their eyes had become so accustomed to the dark that they really couldn't tolerate the light. So they had to be sheltered from the very light they had been lacking for so long. I think the courage that it took them to emerge from having been in such a dark, cold place is what I want to point to, because it takes courage for us to be loved. It really does. And we live in darkness most of the time, so much of the time, that when something wonderful and good happens, we're skeptical. And I have an example of that. When I was a kid, about 15, I had a boyfriend, and we were going to a concert. And I had dressed up, and it was a big event. This was in Burlington, Vermont, where concerts were rare. So with massive crowds going to this concert, and I don't even remember who was playing. But we get to the door, and my boyfriend, who in those days, the boys paid, remember? And he did not have enough money to pay for the ticket, because he thought it was going to be $5 and it was $15. I don't remember exactly. And so we just, bereft, looking at each other like, oh. Well, a gentleman nearby noticed, and gave us the money. And it was about $20, as I recall. And my boyfriend and I just kind of, what do we do? What do we do? Do we take the money? Or do we just go home and not go to the concert? And we decided to accept the gift. So we go in to this concert, and we're sitting there, and the entire time that we sat at that concert, I kept looking at this guy who had given us the money, wondering, what did he want in return? So, but it was a gift. It was a real gift. But I couldn't accept it because I thought he had to have some reason for this. He was going to get something back from me. He was going to come in the dark at night, and who knows? When God brings us love, when we come into the light, it takes courage to accept it and to know that God has that love for us regardless of what we have done and been. We, in a certain sense, we seek refuge in the shadows and in our doubts. I remember last spring, I had been trying to grow peonies. I loved peonies when I was a child. My mother had these bushes that were abundant, and in the spring, the perfume of these peonies would waft across the yard, and you could just smell them. They're wonderful. So for years now, I've been trying to grow peonies. I think I have bought 3 bushes in one spot. First one's died, so this last spring, I'm looking, where is the peony? Is it going to emerge from the ground? And I went, and I knew where it was, and I went to the ground, and I began to shift the dirt around. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm gonna have to spend some more money, buy another bush, because this one isn't gonna come up. And 3 days later, I went back, and I moved more dirt, and I saw the littlest green thing coming. And I realized, and it did, and it came up, and I had one bloom. That emergence required light, and by pushing the dirt away, I provided some light, so then I could be rewarded with the beautiful bloom of this peony. Today, when we live our lives, we have to understand that our love of one another brings forth the bloom of God's love, and that it doesn't matter what bad things have happened in the past, because God is here with us, loving us every day of our lives, and that we don't need to be skeptical. So have the courage to accept the love God gives us from others, from our friends, and for ourselves.